Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Jay Nacombe, and welcome to the Wholesale Masterclass. And today we're going to go over Module 9. So let's go ahead and take a look. So, Module 9, I'm going to talk about something that a lot of wholesalers and real estate investors rarely talk about, which is the contract fall through, right? So, sometimes when you got a property under contract, just know that there's one or two ways it could go. It could either close or it could fall through. But here's what we're going to cover. We're just going to talk about the typical fallout rate, basically like how many contracts fall through just in the real estate space in general. We're also going to go over the different methods on how to avoid the fallout rate, which is a scorched earth method. And just brief summary. All right, this is going to be a real quick video, real quick module. So let me get right into it. So for those that are not familiar with the updates, feel free to sign up to the newsletter, jnacombe.com. Giving out a lot of different updates and new things coming very soon. You want to tap in to make sure you up to date on the latest and greatest. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. On the YouTubes, I'm at Jay Nacombe. On Instagram, IG, I'm at J_buys_houses. J_buys_houses. So definitely tap in, reach out to me there. And obviously share the course, right? Feel like it's any value, let's start a revolution and change people's lives together, all right? But before we do that, warning, this is going to be, as always, the most important video in this entire course. Watch the entire video. Don't skip. Don't fast forward. And if you're a pro like me, just watch it at 2 speed. Okay, so fallout rate, super important, right? To understand like what is fallout. So typically in real estate, right? Anytime you get a property under contract, I don't care if it's a cash deal or traditional mom and pop buyer, like let's just say you're moving into the home as a conventional buyer. According to statistics from the biggest wholesalers, approximately 1 out of every 2 properties under contract do not get to the closing table. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever thought about what that would look like or if that was even a possibility, right? But here's some reasons why, right? And it's all about just doing thorough due diligence. You got to ensure that you perform proper due diligence on a property and a seller's situation before agreeing on a contract. This helps avoid surprises later, such as title issues, liens, or undisclosed property damage. So, in my market in Baltimore, property taxes could probably be the biggest blocker of all deals. Like you would think you have a smoking hot deal, you get a seller under contract, you have a buyer in place ready to go, and then 2-3 weeks later, I'm thinking we going to closing, but then all of a sudden, I get a notification from the title company saying that the property owes $70,000 worth of taxes. Therefore, the seller's not going to come out of pocket, and we just got to let the deal go, right? Now, you got to ensure financial readiness. Like, you just got to make sure that on the buyer side, that they got their financing in place and ready to close. A deal can fall apart if the buyer is not financially prepared when it's time to close. So it's not always the seller's fault, right? Sometimes it's the buyer's hiccups too. Like maybe he's juggling too many situations at one time and he's trying to apply for loan financing and he just drops the ball or he just doesn't really pay attention to what you got going on. That's why it's super important to overly communicate with both the seller and the buyer once you got these 2 properties in the contract. You want to make sure that we get to close in a timely fashion because in real estate, you're always going to hear time is of the essence. That's super important to be mindful of that. And like I said earlier, right, you got to keep in touch. Make sure you maintain an open, consistent communication with the seller and all parties involved. Misunderstandings or missed details can cause uncertainty, so clear communication prevents unexpected issues from arising. Okay, communication is the key to making sure this whole thing works, all right? So make sure you overly communicate with all parties involved. right, let me get out of this to go to the next slide. So now we're just going to talk about the scorched earth method, right? I know y'all probably thinking like, what in the world is he talking about? Is this like a science movie? Like, no, I'm talking about we got to go all out, right? So once you got the property under contract, that means it's a ticking time bomb. Like you got only a few days to find a buyer, so you got to make sure you give it your utmost priority and attention to make sure you get the deal sold to a buyer, right? Because at the end of the day, all it takes is one. You have to prioritize and do everything in your power to find your buyer for this property you have under contract. That's your sole focus. You can't do anything else but get this property under contract. That's the focus that we gotta have. Like we gotta be all hands on deck for everybody, right? So that means loud microphones. Tell buyers, agents, fellow wholesalers, mentors, everyone and their mama about your deal, and make sure that it's the hottest deal smoking. And always, always, always request feedback. I cannot tell you how many times I've had buyers come in, take a look at my property, say, "Hey, we like it, but we got to be like 20,000 under ask." Like, okay, all right, well, thanks for the feedback. Or they might say, "Yeah, this one's not for us." If they just tell you like, "Oh yeah, it's not for us," be like, "Okay, like, why you say that?" Or if it's not for you, why is it not for you? You got to really deep dive and get to the bottom of it, because a few reasons. Number one, if they tell you why they don't like it, you can potentially use that as leverage to go back to the seller. Like, look, let's just say it was a foundation concern that they might have. Just look, we looked at it. We talked to our buyers or our partners, our lenders, and they all said that there might be some foundational issues going on. So therefore, we may have to be at a different price point. It's probably going to be lower than what we initially agreed on. So that could give you, a platform to go back and negotiate with the seller, right? And then also too, it's just always good to learn information about your property for future use. Like for that same example, let's say there was foundation issues, you could ask them to show you where, so that way you know what to look out for during the next property, right? So it's all just about learning and just feeling forward as you go. So even if you do hear a no, you want to make sure you get to the nitty gritty and see why it's a no. Okay, you also got to know your audience. So when talking to buyers, you want to highlight the ARV and the potential versus agents. They want to know if you offer commission. All right. So you just got to play their favorite radio station. Okay. Just tell people what they want to hear. At the end of the day, buyers, they just care about making money on a deal. And is it a potential money maker, right? Same thing with agents. We all self-serving. We just want to know how much money can we make on this deal and if you're paying commission. So realtors are the same way. You just got to know how to talk to them to get them to make action, right? All right, next slide. So JV deals. JV deals, I would say, is probably the quickest way to get your first deal in real estate. Number one reason being is because it's a low barrier to entry, right? You don't need any money, no cash, no credit for most times. But in this one specifically, you just need that relationship, right? So a JV deal is essentially when you look for other wholesalers with a strong buyer's network or experience in your market. Maybe they already have a property under contract and you can help them find a buyer, right? So it could go either ways. You could JV with someone that already has a property under contract, or if you have a deal under contract, somebody that has a strong buyer network, right? So a good JV partner should bring value to the deal, such as a solid list of qualified buyers, or a deep understanding of your property's local area, or a motivated seller in a property under contract. You got to bring value to the table to be considered a JV partner. Right? So once you find this person with some sort of value, that's when you say, hey, like, I would love to JV with you, but before, I contact my list of buyers, or before I market this property, to figure out if this is a good fit, like, let's outline the terms of this joint venture agreement. Like, let's talk about like how the profits will split, the roles, responsibilities. Typically, in most cases, this is the only type of JV I do. Most splits profits are 50-50, but this can be adjusted. Obviously, it's negotiable. Whichever split y'all agree on, it can work. And you can also do it to leverage their buyers list, right? So let's just say you got a property under contract. In that scenario, your JV partner's primary role would be to bring a buyer to the table, right? You want to make sure though that they have access to serious qualified buyers who can close quickly. The broader and more qualified their buyer network, the faster you can close a deal. That's the key. You got to make sure you identify the right JV partner, because you don't want to partner with everybody that can just sell you some game, but then ultimately, waste your time, because time is so valuable in this real estate game. So once you identify the JV partner, again, it could go both ways, right? You could leverage somebody that has a buyer's list, or you could leverage someone that already has a property under contract. You say, look, I could help you get this deal sold. And at the end of the day, regardless of what y'all agree on, as far as terms, sorry not to go back, but I just got to let y'all know, as far as terms, at the end of the day, 5% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So keep that in mind when you're negotiation. All right. So don't get too caught up on going back and forth to the penny. It's just all about making it a win-win for everyone and just making some money, especially if it's your first deal. You want to make sure you get this first deal across the table to the closing line. All right. So yeah, once y'all finally get on the same page as far as terms and the roles and everything like that, you got to make sure you sign the JV agreement. And make sure both parties protect their own interests. And essentially what the JV agreement does is formalize the partnerships and ensures transparency, especially regarding the distribution of profits and responsibilities. Because ultimately, once this thing is signed, assuming you guys both have value and you bring everything to the closing attorney is going to use the JV agreement to know how to disperse the funds and how to split the deal. So that's super important. You got to make sure your paperwork is straight. All right. I was going to give y'all an example of a JV agreement. Let me see if I could pull it up here. Let me see if I got it in my documents. I probably do. If not, I'm sure I got some in my Gmail. JV, True Park JV. This is a good one. No, consultant fee. JV agreement. Here we go. Well, I mean, hey, this is a quick and dirty JV agreement. It's just pretty much very simple, right? This document serves as a JV agreement between entities regarding subject properties. Assignment fee and payment breakdown between entities are listed below. Pretty much straightforward, right? This says the percentage for each party and then what we're going to split, right? Pretty much standard. And it could go through different various ways, right? JV agreement. Everybody has their own JV agreement. Let me see. JV agreement. Okay, this is another example. This one is a little bit more intricate. This joint venture agreement just outlines all the JV partners. All right. So it gives you the address. It gives you the date, obligations, right? Susan, Javon, and Marvin is bringing a buyer to the deal. Me, I'm bringing secured equitable interests in the property. And then we talk about the profits, that's splitting. So yeah, this is what a JV agreement looks like. Very straightforward. All right. So we nipped that in the bud. That's pretty much it, right? So just to recap, just to land this plane real quick. Anytime you get a property under contract, you got to have an all-out approach. Just have unwavering confidence that you will get this deal to closing. Like, just make sure you get it done because the seller is depending on you to get this thing closed, all right? So just do whatever it takes to make sure you find a buyer so that way you can ultimately get paid. Because if you don't, then you're going to have to face the repercussions of losing your earnest money deposit. And nobody likes to lose money, right? But at the end of the day, you have to be realistic because everyone won't make it. Like we said in the statistics in the beginning, like 1 out of every 2 contracts will not close. So for the ones that don't close, you got to be ready to pay the seller the earnest money deposit. But at the same time, you want to put yourself in the best position to beat the odds and make sure you do close most of your deals you put on the contract, right? And this is the best way to avoid it is by reverse wholesaling. That's what we talked about in the previous module, where you find a buyer first. That's a surefire way of getting this deal done. All right. So if you felt like this module gave you some value, feel free to leave us review because I'm giving away special prizes. Check out testimonial.to/JNacombe. Let us know how, your honest feedback. Let me know if you felt like this was of value, this was helpful for you along your journey. Let me know. All right, and I like to end it off with a quote. Only the paranoid survive by Scott Alexander. I mean, it's pretty much straightforward, right? At the end of the day, like once you get a contract, like I said before, it's a ticking time bomb. You got to make sure you find a buyer no matter what. So let's go ahead. Let's get this deal closed. But at the end of the day, we got to get to work, baby. All right. So that's all I got for y'all tonight. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.